Chapter 699. Splitting Zhenyuan flying swords is even more difficult than I thought. Standing in front of the lake, Yichen pointed with his finger, and the gold sword came out of its scabbard on its own. The dense sword chi hovered above Yichen's head twice, and the gold sword suddenly trembled, splitting into two lifelike gold swords. These gold swords were imitated by Zhenyuan, and the three swords merged into one. One shouldn't look down on Zhenyuan flying swords, as it was not easy at all. The hardest part was to let nature take its course. If Yichen were to forcefully split the Zhenyuan flying swords, not to mention 3 swords, he could even launch 100 swords at the same time. Unfortunately, what was the use? The forcefully split Zhenyuan flying swords would only be equivalent to an ordinary Zhenyuan attack. Even if Yichen's sword intent was powerful, it wouldn't have much destructive power. After a period of cultivation, Yichen could only naturally split 2 Zhenyuan flying swords. The true Zhenyuan flying swords had to have at least a third of the original's power. Otherwise, it wouldn't be complete and wouldn't have enough power. Go! 3 sword shadows shot out, slashing on a somewhat broken upper-grade shield. Puchi! 3 holes immediately appeared on the shield. The hole in the middle was extremely thin, as if it had been carefully polished. The holes on both sides were slightly twisted, and the iron skin was twisted. A strong smell of iron spread out, like sulfur or rotten eggs. This broken upper-grade shield was Yichen's spoils of war in Blood Battle Ocean. He had given the intact ones to the dragon god's celestial palace, who then gave him sufficient rewards. As for the broken ones, Yichen kept a portion and gave the rest to the dragon god's celestial palace as well. He discovered that using a broken upper-grade artifact to test the attacking power was extremely effective. After all, no matter how broken an upper-grade artifact was, it was still not something a mid-grade artifact could compare to. To destroy it was not something an ordinary Sea of Soul Master could do. It was the best tool for testing power. Not bad, about a third of the original's power. According to the size and shape of the sword holes, it wasn't hard for Yichen to judge the power of the Zhenyuan flying swords. Puchi! The Zhenyuan flying swords pierced through the broken upper-grade shield and dissipated in the next instant, turning into 2 wisps of green smoke. Only the golden sword was still as sharp as ever and was not damaged at all. Yichen pointed his finger and the golden sword returned to its scabbard. Yichen, Auntie is calling you for dinner. Not far away, Murong Qingqing, who was dressed in a purple robe without a mask, walked over. A fragrant breeze filled the air. Okay, I'll be right there. Let me change first. Yichen kissed Murong Qingqing, turned around, and walked back into the house. Splitting the true essence flying swords required a great deal of concentration, and Yichen's body began to sweat. Days passed by. Yichen was either cultivating or spending time with Murong Qingqing. He had plenty of time. One day, a deacon from the pavilion of Luoyang City brought news. It turned out to be a letter from Yen Fengfeng, asking them to meet up in the Sky Marshal region. Because of the long journey, she had given the letter to the #1 information organization in the world, the Knowledge Pavilion, which had stores all over the continent, making it very convenient. After reading the letter, Yichen said to Murong Qingqing, "It has been a long time since I went to the Sky Marshal region. Let's go tomorrow." For most of the martial geniuses, the Sky Marshal region was a holy land. But, for Yichen, it did not have any special meaning. The higher he stood, the more indifferent he would feel. The journey was long, so there was no need to travel by himself. So, Yichen and Murong Qingqing got on the flying puppet and flew at 10 times the speed of sound toward the Sky Marshal region. In this world, normal people did not have much to do, going out early and returning late every day to make a living for their families. There were also rich young men who indulged in sensual pleasures. Along the way, Yichen did not let the flying puppet fly too high. They flew past one city after another, seeing a very familiar scene. If he did not have his soul traveling over and was still in that world, his life would probably be one of the people down there. But now, he did not have to worry about his life anymore. All he wanted was to reach the peak of the sword art and explore the mysteries of the world. Without realizing it, Yichen realized that he had already left the mortal world and reached a higher level. The people down there were just normal people in his eyes. Perhaps their lives would still be interesting, but what they wanted would be completely different. 1 month later, the two arrived at the Sky Martial region. The place where Yen Fengfeng had invited Yi Chen was in the Lotus City, one of the top 10 cities in the world. The whole city was blue and tall. From far away, Yi Chen could already see the tall buildings in the city. The tall ones were hundreds of meters tall, like towers, while the shorter ones were about the same. They seemed to be endless. The flying puppet did not slow down at all, rushing into the city directly. The White Cloud restaurant was one of the top 2 restaurants in the city. Although it was luxurious, it was not extravagant. It was made of ancient cloud wood and had 18 floors in total. Each floor was 20 meters tall, taking up a lot of space. Sitting on the 18th floor of the restaurant, the clouds in the sky seemed very close, as if they could touch them with their hands. Yi Chen. On the 18th floor, Yen Fengfeng saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. Beside her were the disciples of the mysterious martial school and Hai Wuya. Putting away the flying puppet, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing floated into the 18th floor of the restaurant. Long time no see. Yi Chen cupped his fists. Hai Wuya laughed. You brat, I thought you had forgotten about us. It has been almost 2 years since we last met, right? This time, we have to drink to our heart's content. Alright. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing sat down and poured themselves a cup of wine, drinking it in one gulp. Great. Hai Wuya and Yen Fengfeng each drank a cup. Senior Brother Yi. Hello, Senior Brother Yi. The disciples of the mysterious martial school and Sky Ocean Martial School greeted Yi Chen one after another. For many of them, it was their first time seeing Yi Chen, so they were a bit reserved. Yi Chen chuckled. Everyone, relax a bit. Hai Wuya said, with you here, they won't be able to relax. Don't you think about your current status among the geniuses? But you will get used to it. Don't mind it too much. Isn't this sword master Yi Chen? So, Yen Fengfeng invited him. Each floor of the restaurant could hold hundreds of people, and those who could be on the 18th floor were either the upper echelons of the martial schools or the top geniuses. Many of them had seen Yi Chen before, and some of them could be considered famous figures in the Sky Martial region. But the second they saw Yi Chen, they all started gossiping and discussing in low voices. Ever since Yi Chen got the title of Sword Master, he disappeared without a trace. A lot of people said that he was afraid that he could not bear the title. I wonder if those people would still dare to say such things in front of Yi Chen when he comes back. Of course not. They are only talking behind his back. That is true. There are not many who would dare to say it directly. There were a lot of people discussing in low voices, and some of them would look at Yi Chen from time to time. Within a year of Yi Chen's departure, the new ranking had also come out. Dugu Ju was at the forefront, ranked 2nd. Dan Tai Mingyue shocked the whole crowd the moment she made her move, ranked 3rd. Bai Wuxue had always been at the top level, ranked 4th. The top 20 were almost all occupied by all the top geniuses. The older generation masters were all giving up their positions. As for the first place, it was still Yi Chen. In this era where geniuses were emerging endlessly, Yi Chen was the only one who had been ranked first for 2 consecutive years. In the past, Yi Chen was also one of the many geniuses. But now, his fame had already spread throughout the continent. There were many people who had not seen Yi Chen before, but there were only a pitiful few who had not heard of Yi Chen. However, newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. There were some new geniuses who were not very sure of Yi Chen. They only saw how horrifying Dugu Ju was, how stunning Dan Tai Mingyue was, and how elegant Bai Wuxue was. As for Yi Chen, he would probably lose the first place sooner or later. After all, no one could guarantee that they would be in a period of rapid development for more than a year, improving by leaps and bounds. In a situation where there was not much difference, many things could be changed in 1 year, such as the change of the Grandmaster ranking. Sword Sex Yi Chen, interesting? There were 3 young men and women sitting at a table near the window. The man on the left had a majestic build. His arms were thicker than ordinary people's legs, and he had a heavy saber on his waist. His eyebrows were very thick and long, and his tiger-like eyes contained a terrifying energy. Next to the majestic young man sat a girl in colorful clothes. She had an exotic charm, big eyes, a high nose bridge and plump lips. She looked very flirtatious, and her body was incomparably hot. Her skin was a light wheat color, and she looked very healthy. Opposite them was a young man. This person's hands were very long and slender, like bamboo joints. His appearance could not be said to be handsome, but it could not be said to be ugly either. His eyes were narrow and long, and the corners of his eyes were very sharp. At this moment, the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, and there was a trace of evil in it. The clothes of these three people did not fit in with the others, and they seemed to have come from very far away. Talking about the sword in front of Brother Lu is just asking to be humiliated. The girl in colorful clothes did not hide her voice at all. Yes. The majestic young man nodded. Who are you people? On a nearby table, a few geniuses who admired Yichen creased their brows and asked. We're from the West Ocean. The young man drank his wine without looking sideways. West Ocean? I don't care where you're from, but you'd better have some self-awareness. Yichen is not someone you can casually belittle. So what if I belittle him? The young man swirled the wine in his hand, and the sparkling wine swirled around. You're from the West Ocean, and you don't have any achievements on True Spirit Continent. What qualifications do you have to belittle him? The girl in colorful clothes said with a disdainful face, Do you know Lu Xiaoyu? Lu Xiaoyu? Of course I know him. What's the point of talking about him? Although Yi Chen, Du Guju, Dan Tai Mingyue, and Yen Fengfeng had become the top 5 young tycoons, pushing down Lu Xiaoyu and the rest, Lu Xiaoyu was once one of the top 5 young tycoons. No one knew what realm his strength had reached. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu went to the West Ocean, but he couldn't even take 10 swords from Brother Lu. Your so-called sword master Yichen might not be that powerful. What? Lu Xiaoyu couldn't even take 10 swords from him, and that was half a year ago. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu was certainly much more powerful than before, but even he couldn't take 10 swords from this young man. Who exactly was this person? Chapter 700. You're not bragging, are you? There's no proof. I don't believe that Lu Xiaoyu couldn't receive 10 sword strikes from him. The first reaction of the genius who spoke was disbelief, thinking that the other side was exaggerating the truth. For example, after exchanging 10 moves, one side felt that his sword art was slightly inferior and directly admitted defeat. This kind of situation was not unheard of. If it were a life and death battle, exchanging hundreds of moves wouldn't be a problem, but being unable to receive 10 sword strikes was a completely different concept. Bragging. Ask the people of the western regions and see if they've heard of the name West Ocean Sword Master Lu Wujin. The multicolor-robed woman snorted. West Ocean Sword Master was not called West Ocean Sword Master. Its actual meaning was the Sword Master of the West Ocean. If he left the continent, Yichen could also be called the continent's Sword Master. After all, Yichen's title was obtained on True Spirit Continent. Only on the continent would he be recognized, and vice versa. Clearly, everyone understood the meaning of West Ocean Sword Master's words. Each and every one of them sucked in a breath of cold air. What was going on? Usually, the 4 shallow oceans and True Spirit Continent didn't have the title of Sword Master. Who would have thought that after Yichen, another Lu Wujin would appear? One was the continent Sword Master, and the other was West Ocean Sword Master. So he's also a Sword Master. No wonder he's not convinced of Yichen. Everyone suddenly understood. West Ocean Sword Master, Yichen, you've got an opponent now. Hai Wuya said to Yichen with a smile. What's so great about West Ocean Sword Master? Our continent is the Orthodox. A disciple of mysterious sect, who worshipped Yichen the most, said in a low voice. Junior brother Wang, don't gossip. Although Yen Fengfeng said so, a smile appeared on her face. Yes, senior sister. I won't say it, but everyone understands. The disciple chuckled. Yichen smiled faintly and said, having an opponent is a good thing. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to find an opponent even if I search the entire world. Although Yichen was not a life and death king yet, he had already reached a realm where it would be hard to find a worthy opponent in the Sea of Souls realm. Lu Wujian's appearance did not make him unhappy, but instead comforted him. Outside the continent, there were 4 shallow oceans. And beyond that, there was still the endless ocean. The number of experts in the world was like the carps in the river. He did not need to worry about not being able to find an opponent. Murong Qingqing knew Yichen better than anyone else. She knew that he was a genius swordsman who desired to fight wholeheartedly. She couldn't help but feel proud. This was her man. Under the table, a soft and delicate hand held Yichen's palm. The geniuses who had questioned the woman in the colorful dress and the other two were stunned speechless. Their opponents were not nameless figures. They were the masters of the West Ocean Sword sect, and their status was equal to that of Yichen. In that case, it was possible that Lu Xiaoyu could not withstand 10 sword attacks from them. At least, there was a slight possibility. What's wrong? Not speaking? The multicolor-robed woman revealed a mocking expression. Humph! The genius sat back down. Looking at Yichen's position, the multicolor-robed woman slightly raised her head and arrogantly said, "The title of sword sect is not something anyone can bear. If you're smart enough, you'd better give up the title of sword sect, lest you humiliate yourself." Naylan, since he can be called sword sect, he certainly has some skill. At the very least, he's much stronger than Lu Xiaoyu. You don't need to belittle him. The slender fingers of Lu Wujian didn't raise his head from start to finish, as if nobody could pique his interest. "Brother Lu, I'm a straightforward person, and I say whatever I want to say. However, I don't think I'm wrong. Brother Gu, don't you agree?" The multicolor-robed woman asked the majestic youth. The majestic youth nodded. Murong Qingqing was well aware that Yichen would either not retaliate, or once he did, it would be a thunderous blow. It was obvious that the multicolor-robed woman couldn't arouse his anger. After all, she could shut one person's mouth, but she couldn't shut the mouths of all the people in the world. If he became very angry when everyone said a few words about him, then his state of mind would be too poor, and he wouldn't be able to endure it. However, she was Yichen's woman, and the multicolor-robed woman was also a woman. Women naturally had to be dealt with by women. She couldn't tolerate a woman speaking ill of her man, so she immediately said mockingly, "Strength isn't determined by words. No matter how extravagant your words are, it's just a fantasy." "For you." The multicolor-robed woman raised her eyebrows, and her tone was unfriendly. "I'm his girlfriend. What's your relationship with the West Ocean Sword sect?" Murong Qingqing countered with a question. The multicolor-robed woman spoke for a long time, but she didn't continue. It was true that she admired Lu Wujian, but she didn't dare to say that she was Lu Wujian's girlfriend. Once she did, it would undoubtedly make him feel disgusted. After all, there were still a few people who were close to Lu Wujian. "You're courting death." The multicolor-robed woman's face flushed, and she raised her arm. A red Jin Yuan whip condensed, and she lashed out at Murong Qingqing, who was several dozen meters away. "Break!" Murong Qingqing's finger was dyed black as she pointed at the tip of the Jin Yuan whip. The Jin Yuan whip exploded inch by inch, setting off a storm in the restaurant. It rushed out through the window like a beam of light leaking out. "You've got some skill. Take my bloodthirsty triple kill." The complexion of the multicolor-robed woman changed, and her expression turned grave. She made a grabbing motion in the air, and the red Jin Yuan turned into a three-headed scarlet python. This Jin Yuan python was extremely strange. Its body was very short, but the neck connecting the three heads was very long, even longer than its body. It could instantly attack 3 distant targets. The three-headed scarlet python flicked its tongue and pounced toward Murong Qingqing with a fiery intent. "Darkness sky curtain." Murong Qingqing's right hand drew a half-circle in the void before her. Immediately, a layer of black barrier enveloped the area. As the black barrier formed, Yan Fengfeng and Hai Wuya were astonished to discover that they seemed to have been isolated from the outside world. What a powerful profound! Hai Wuya originally thought that although Murong Qingqing's strength was high, it couldn't be that high. But now, he discovered that he didn't even have the confidence to defeat Murong Qingqing. He bitterly smiled. Yichen was powerful, but his woman was also this powerful. How could he live? Only Yichen knew that Murong Qingqing's strength was not limited to just this. Not to mention Hai Wuya, even Yan Fengfeng might not be able to defeat Murong Qingqing. With the perfect demonic vessels and demonic power, she was almost equivalent to a human demon's. One could well imagine her battle strength. Pop, 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 pop. The three-headed python's attack landed on the black barrier, but it didn't cause a huge explosion. It only produced a slight explosion, as if the energy was absorbed by the barrier. Impossible! The multicolor-robed woman didn't expect Murong Qingqing's strength to be this high. You take my move as well. After dispersing the darkness sky curtain, Murong Qingqing once again pointed at the opponent. This time, it was the demonic finger. Even without the wings, it still had 50 to 60% of its might. Fire crystal shield. The multicolor-robed woman hurriedly raised both her hands in the void, condensing a red crystal-like Shenyuan shield. The shield's surface was covered in complicated patterns, and one red light after another flowed out. Unfortunately, Murong Qingqing's demonic finger was a pure offensive martial skill without a trace of impurities. It easily broke through the fire crystal shield and was about to injure the multicolor-robed woman. Break! Right at this moment, Lu Wujian, who had remained calm and collected, made his move. Without even looking, he raised his left-hand sword fingers and shot out a white-colored sword qi, cutting apart the demonic finger's power. Go! The white sword qi was like a fish swimming in the water. It made a turn in the air and suddenly increased its speed, shooting toward Murong Qingqing's location. He wasn't targeting Murong Qingqing, but Yi Chen. If Yi Chen couldn't even take this move of his, then the title of Sword Master would be in vain, not worthy of his attention. The white sword qi was as fast as lightning. Murong Qingqing might be able to block it if she used her full strength. However, this was a restaurant, and everyone would hold back when fighting. If she couldn't control her power and destroyed the restaurant, then it would be equivalent to losing. Therefore, she didn't make a move, as she knew that Yi Chen was about to make his move. Similarly, the sword qi shot out by Yi Chen was thinner and sharper than the white sword qi. Like a paper knife, it followed the white sword qi's outline and cut it in half. The remaining power of the sword qi didn't dissipate and continued to counterattack. Good move. Lu Wujian, who was known as the West Ocean Sword Master, had a gleam in his eyes. He reached out and pinched Yi Chen's sword qi. The sword qi was still struggling like a slippery eel, but as Lu Wujian exerted a little force, the sword qi dissipated with a puff. As expected of the continent's sword master. You are qualified to be my opponent. However, just this bit of strength is only enough to pique my interest. We will meet again in the future. At that time, it won't be too late to fight. Lu Wujian stood up and said to the multicolor-robed woman and the majestic youth, "Let's go." Humph, count yourself lucky. The multicolor-robed woman glared at Murong Qingqing. When the three of them walked to the staircase, one of the geniuses couldn't help but say, "Why don't we fight now? Could it be that you're afraid and think that your current strength isn't enough?" Lu Wujian said indifferently, "I will represent my master to meet Sky Sword Master. When I defeat him, there will be plenty of opportunities. At that time, you can come and watch the battle. The location will be at your so-called Nine Dragon Lake. That place is quite interesting." Meet Sky Sword Master? The person who spoke was dumbstruck. This was a legendary sword artist of the older generation. Although he wasn't a sword master, many people believed that he had the strength of a sword master. When you see Sky Sword Master, send my regards. The battle a year ago made me very happy. Yi Chen's voice was transmitted. Send my regards? Lu Wujian's eyes narrowed. He didn't know Sky Sword Master's strength, but his master had once been defeated by him. Now, he had surpassed his master, and had long since surpassed his master. Therefore, he had come to defeat Sky Sword Master in his master's stead. From Yi Chen's tone, he had clearly fought with Sky Sword Master. As for who won and who lost, the answer was already clear. Interesting. Lu Wujian smiled and walked down the stairs. All of a sudden, a voice resounded. September 18th, Nine Dragon Lake. Let me see what geniuses of True Spirit Continent are there. The 18th of September was the date of the previous Nine Dragon Lake battles. Lu Wujian's intention was very clear. He wanted to defeat the numerous geniuses of True Spirit Continent in this meaningful place and spread the prestige of West Ocean Sword Sect. Wherever he went, there was no one who didn't submit. Chapter 701. Too arrogant. Does he think that he can sweep away all the geniuses of true spirit continent by himself? Many geniuses were indignant. Don't worry. Although West Ocean Sword Master is strong, our continent has many peak geniuses as well. The top 5 of the masters ranking, which one of them isn't independent? Right? Yan Fengfeng is ranked 5th, her speed unparalleled. Bai Wuxue is a veteran young tyrant, steady like a mountain. Dan Tai Mingyue's movement is marvelous, stunning and nimble, while Duguju's blade art is tyrannical and invincible. Apart from these 4, our continent also has Sword Master Yichen. After a year, I wonder what level Yichen has reached. He's definitely stronger than before. As for how much stronger, it's hard to say. Let's wait and see. On the 18th of September, we'll know. The crowd discussed spiritedly, their emotions stirring. Yichen, my intuition tells me that this West Ocean Sword Master is truly extraordinary. You can't be careless when the time comes. Hai Wuya warned Yichen. Yichen said, don't worry, I won't look down on anyone, nor will I overestimate anyone. In a battle, we'll know who's stronger. Hee, my warning is unnecessary. You're much calmer than me. Hai Wuya smiled. White Cloud Restaurant was only the first location of the gathering. After drinking, the group of 20 people left Lotus City and flew northwest. This gathering was not just for drinking. How long could one drink last? Usually, this kind of gathering would be held for half a month or even a month. Everybody would get together to get acquainted and talk about their recent situation. After a long time, their feelings would fade, and they would eventually become ordinary friends, or even strangers. One had to know how long the path of martial arts was. It would be too sad to not have friends who could support each other. The path of martial arts was not about destroying one's feelings, but about keeping them inside. Friends who were worth making were true friends, and friends who were not worth making would be forgotten. There were many places of interest in the Tianwu domain. Along the way, Yichen saw many youths traveling in groups. When they were in the mood, they would find an empty space to drink and chat. Then, they would exchange moves with each other. They were not aiming for victory, just to test their martial arts and experience. This is the Meteorite Mountain Range. 10,000 years ago, a group of meteorites smashed into this place and formed it. Because all the vitality in this place was scattered by the shockwave, the underground rivers were also filled up, causing this place to be barren and devoid of demonic beasts. However, deep underground, a type of hard meteorite crystal can often be found. This crystal is a top-notch material for forging treasures. Yan Fengfeng pointed at a desolate mountain range and explained. Yichen and Murong Qingqing looked over. Murong Qingqing didn't feel anything, but Yichen inwardly clicked his tongue. There were countless craters in this meteorite mountain range. The smallest one was dozens of li in diameter, and the biggest one was thousands of li in diameter. It was like an astonishingly huge iron pot buried in the ground. The bottom of the crater was hundreds of li above the ground, and ordinary martial artists would not be able to climb out if they fell in. Yichen was shocked because he came from another world. Even the smallest meteorite here could cover the earth in dust and kill most of the living beings. Only the true spirit continent, which was countless times larger than the earth, could easily withstand the impact of meteorites. Of course, one couldn't directly estimate the size of the meteorite from the size of the crater, because the meteorite falling at high speed would have an impact. The crater was dozens of li in diameter, while the meteorite was a few li in size. That several thousand li wide crater was probably made by 100 li wide meteorite. After passing through the meteorite mountain range, everyone arrived at a huge canyon. This canyon was called Emperor Canyon. It was 99,000 li long, and its widest part reached 1,000 li. It divided the surrounding 100,000 li into 2 parts. It was a ghastly crack. Flying in the sky and looking down, it was easy to be scared silly. After all, anyone who saw such a crack would suspect whether it was connected to hell or not. They would be afraid that they would be sucked in and never see the light of day again. The reason why the Emperor Canyon was named Emperor was because there was an Emperor Scar stele in the depths of the Emperor Canyon. It was said that only titled monarchs could leave their mark on the emperor's scar stele. Peak monarchs couldn't even leave a single mark. No one has been able to leave a mark on the stele for several tens of thousands of years? Yan Fengfeng said. Yi Chen doubtfully said, Su King is a titled monarch, but even he couldn't leave a mark? Hai Wuya said, the ancient era's standard is different from the present. With Su King's strength, he could only be considered a peak monarch, not a titled monarch. So that's how it is. Yi Chen faintly nodded. Let's go and take a look. Yan Fengfeng's speed gradually increased as she rushed toward the depths of Emperor Canyon. The others followed closely behind. Roughly an hour later, everyone arrived at the center of Emperor Canyon. Let's go down. Without the slightest hesitation, Yan Fengfeng's figure shot into the canyon. Yi Chen, Murong Qingqing, and Hai Wuya also didn't hesitate. The others exchanged glances and pondered for a moment before clenching their teeth and chasing after them. It was as if there was something in the depths of the canyon that made them afraid. The middle part of the Monarch Canyon was the widest. It had a circumference of over 1,000 li. There was no sign of life in this area, nor were there any miscellaneous items. There was only a stone tablet at the center. The stone tablet was 99 li tall and 9 li wide. There were many marks on it. There were saber marks, sword marks, paw marks, fist marks, finger marks, and even claw marks. They were arranged in order from top to bottom. There were no marks left on the stone tablet from the middle to the bottom. It was a piece of blank space. 100 li away, everyone stopped and slowly descended. It wasn't that they didn't want to approach, but that they couldn't. Emperor Scar's steel wasn't an ordinary steel. The aura it emitted made their Zhenyuan, blood, and even heartbeats go berserk. They could be killed by this aura at any moment. Yan Fengfeng said solemnly, Emperor Scar's steel itself is a miraculous item. The people who left their marks on it were all titled monarchs. Although no one has been able to leave a mark on the steel in the past several tens of thousands of years, the remnant aura is still not something ordinary people can endure. We usually call this aura Emperor Qi, the aura of titled monarchs. Emperor Qi, Yi Chen muttered. Yan Fengfeng turned her head and said to the disciples of Mysterious Sect and Sky Ocean Sect, You guys stay here. Don't get too close. After saying these words, she turned to Yi Chen and the rest. We can walk forward a bit and see a bit more clearly. The marks on the steel are uncanny workmanship. Even the shallowest mark represents an astonishing accomplishment, containing the laws of heaven and earth. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts naturally couldn't enter within 100 li. However, Yan Fengfeng, Hai Wuya Yi Chen, and Murong Qingqing were all masters. They could approach a bit closer without any problems. Moreover, beyond 100 li, they truly couldn't see too clearly. The Emperor Qi restricted one's perception and eyesight, concealing the truth. Alright, Yi Chen was extremely interested in Emperor Scar steel. He could feel countless strands of frightening will on it. There were sword intent, blade intent, fist intent, and so on. Each strand made him feel extremely shocked. Compared to the will on the steel, Yi Chen's destruction sword intent wasn't even worth mentioning. It was like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. 90 li. 80 li. At 75 li, Hai Wuya bitterly smiled. He couldn't hold on any longer. Yan Fengfeng and the other two continued forward. 70 li. 60 li. Murong Qingqing stopped, and Yan Fengfeng's complexion was also somewhat pale. Let's do it here. Yi Chen's expression was calm. The Emperor Qi 60 li away was equivalent to a peak 5th step sword intent. Although it was fierce, Yi Chen had a 5th step destruction sword intent, which was equivalent to an ordinary 6th step sword intent. Therefore, he wasn't affected much. However, he still had to take care of Murong Qingqing and Yan Fengfeng. Yan Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen in admiration and said, The Emperor Qi emitted by the steel contains different wills. Be careful of the most offensive sword intent and blade intent. I know. Yi Chen had just suffered a strand of Emperor Qi containing sword intent. It was unknown how many years this strand of sword intent had existed for, but it was still incomparably sharp. Raising his eyes, Yi Chen saw the first mark at the top. It was a fist imprint, square-shaped, as if a jade seal had been stamped on it. The fist imprint was extremely deep. However, due to the passage of time, the emperor qi emitted from it was somewhat weak. However, compared to the marks below, the emperor qi emitted from this fist imprint was the most boundless, as if an emperor was overlooking the heaven and earth. Yen Fengfeng introduced, the first fist imprint was left behind by the first titled monarch of the ancient era. This monarch was called Ancient Emperor. According to historical records, this fist imprint should have been created by Ancient Emperor's four-way emperor fist, which is one of the most famous peak profound martial skills. Shifting their gazes downward, the three saw the second mark. This was a claw mark. An ordinary claw mark naturally wouldn't enter the three's eyes. However, this claw mark made the three's hair stand on end. It was as if this claw had not clawed at the steel, but a piece of land, a mountain, a river, a planet. Anything under this claw would shatter. Moreover, this claw mark was actually emitting a demonic will, instilling great fear in people's hearts. This is the second titled monarch after Ancient Emperor, Heaven-Abandoning Emperor. Heaven-Abandoning Emperor walked the demonic Tao, and was also one of the three great demonic Tao kings in human history. At his peak, he left this world for the starry sky and disappeared without a trace. Since then, he has never been seen again. Hearing Yen Fengfeng's words, coupled with her own demonic will, an illusion appeared before Murong Qingqing's eyes. It was as if she was seeing a figure on the Emperor Scar steel. This figure was boundlessly tall, reaching the starry sky and stepping on the earth. Its shadow enveloped the world, and with a wave of its palm, mountains and rivers were destroyed and planets exploded. What a powerful figure! Shaking her head, Murong Qingqing sobered up. She knew that this was not as simple as an illusion. Through Yen Fengfeng's narration, she had a preliminary impression of this figure. Then, Heaven-Abandoning Emperor's qi surged over and combined with the impression in her mind, giving rise to a mysterious reaction. The eighth sword mark is an anomaly. He doesn't have the strength of a titled monarch, but he has the means to leave a mark on the steel. His title is Sword King. Yen Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen. He is the Sword King. Yi Chen muttered. Under the heavens, in human history, there had only been one Sword King, and that was the ancient Sword King. The reason why Battle King didn't dare to call himself Sword King was because he believed that he hadn't reached the level of the ancient Sword King. Unexpectedly, this Sword King was even more powerful than he had imagined. He was unexpectedly able to leave a sword mark on the steel with the identity of a king. Although this sword mark was very shallow, the aura it emitted was not weak at all. Chapter 702. Sword King's comprehension of profound sword arts is insufficient, but his sword will is not the slightest bit inferior to titled monarchs, even slightly surpassing them. I think this should be the key to his fame being passed down through the ages and leaving sword scars on Emperor Scar steel. Although there weren't many records regarding Sword King, there were still some. Therefore, Yen Fengfeng knew quite a bit. Yi Chen faintly nodded. The sword scars are shallow, which means that the attack power is not high enough. If the aura is not weak, it means that the sword intent is strong. Sword intent could amplify one's attack power, but there was a limit. Sword King's sword moves containing sword intent were clearly weaker than titled monarchs. However, his sword intent was at the forefront. Continuing down, shocking scars imprinted themselves in the eyes of the three. Some of these scars were strange and bizarre, such as forks, triangles, prisms, big and small dots, intersecting scars, and yin and yang fish scars. It was unknown what profound martial skills these titled monarchs used. The 398th mark was 70,000 years ago. The most famous titled monarch was called Four Extreme Emperor. He was proficient in space profound and was famous for his finger arts. At the Sea of Soul realm, he created a low-grade profound martial skill, Void-Shattering Finger. Its might far surpasses mid-grade profound martial skills. The Void-Shattering Finger has a total of 4 styles, each representing an application of the space profound. The fourth finger's might is the greatest, almost comparable to high-grade profound martial skills. As she spoke, Yen Fengfeng glanced at Yi Chen with an odd expression. She had seen Yi Chen use a space profound finger art before. Of course, there were many people who knew space profound throughout the ages. However, for Extreme Emperor was relatively close to the modern era, so his void-shattering finger had some descriptions. The finger art Yi Chen used was very similar to the third style of 4 Extreme Emperor's void-shattering finger, only the Zhenyuan color was different. Apart from this, Xia Hozuan's void-shattering finger should also be the second style of 4 Extreme Emperor's void-shattering finger. Void-shattering finger. Yi Chen's expression flickered. He had found the third style of the void-shattering finger in the Goat Head Mountain in the South Rudra region's 100,000 mountain range. At the same time, he had also found a white key with the words Emperor's Tomb, Aries constellation written on it. Could it be that the Emperor's Tomb was the tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor, and the white key was the key to open it? 4 Extreme Emperor has 4 subordinates, all of whom are life and death kings and also demonic beasts. They are Azure Wolf King, White Sheep King, Firebird King, and Sky Scorpio King. Azure Wolf King represents Wolf constellation, White Sheep King represents Aries constellation, and Firebird King and Sky Scorpio King represent Firebird constellation and Scorpio King respectively. 4 Extreme Emperor imparted each of them a void-shattering finger, allowing them to comprehend the space profound. Aries King, Aries constellation? Yi Chen understood everything. The void-shattering finger that he cultivated was indeed created by the 4 Extreme Sovereign, and the 4 Extreme Sovereign had taught the third style of the void-shattering finger to the Aries King. That was why the white key had the words Aries constellation. Yen Fengfeng continued, for Extreme Emperor was the same as the heaven-abandoning Emperor. He also entered the starry sky, disappearing for 100 years before returning. However, when he returned, he had suffered an incurable injury, as if he had encountered something frightening in the starry sky. Sensing that his life was at its end, the 4 Extreme Emperor built his own tomb in a forbidden region. This tomb contained countless arrays and the heaven-shaking power that the 4 Extreme Emperor had unleashed before his death. Even life and death kings would have a slim chance of survival if they tried to force their way in. Later on, his 4 subordinates also died one after another. They were subordinates of the 4 Extreme Emperor, and after death, they wished to accompany him. They built 4 tombs in the surroundings of the 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb. Opening these 4 tombs required a special key. Since these 4 tombs were connected to the 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb, life and death kings would have a hard time barging in. After so many years, has anyone found the location of the 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb? Yi Chen suddenly asked. The 4 Extreme Emperor's tomb was undoubtedly the tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor. Yen Fengfeng shook her head. I'm not sure. The tomb of the 4 Extreme Emperor was built in a moving forbidden region. Even life and death kings would have a hard time finding it. And even if they found it without the key, they might not be able to open the tomb. The location of the tomb has always been a hot topic, but I've never heard of anyone finding it or entering it. Even if they did, they probably wouldn't spread the news. That's true. Yi Chen faintly nodded. His soul power entered his storage ring. On a bookshelf in the corner, a huge white key was quietly placed there. The 4 Extreme Emperor was an extremely famous titled monarch. Even life and death kings covet his space profound martial skill. I'm afraid that once it appears, it will cause a reign of terror. Even Su King and my master will have to make a move. Yen Fengfeng continued, that's for sure. At the Sea of Soul realm, the comprehension of profounds depended on the quality, not the quantity. It was impossible to comprehend too many profounds at the same time. Having a few was already good enough. However, at the life and death realm, one could enter the state of being one with the heavens at any time, and their comprehension ability would increase by countless folds. Comprehending profounds would be extremely fast. As a result, the demand for profounds would increase by a lot. After all, different profounds would have different effects and might. Apart from the main profounds, how could a few profounds be enough? Space profound was one of the strongest profounds, and was related to many profounds. As long as one could obtain a space profound martial skill, it would be of great help. Of course, the grade of void-shattering finger was a bit low, and life and death kings might not be too enthusiastic about it. It would be best if one had it, but it wouldn't matter if one didn't. What life and death kings truly cared about were mid-grade space profound martial skills, or even high-grade ones. After all, void-shattering finger was only a low-grade profound martial skill, but its might already surpassed mid-grade profound martial skills. In that case, high-grade space profound martial skills would at least be equivalent to peak-grade profound martial skills. My current strength is still far from enough. For Extreme Emperor's space profound martial skill has already become a legend. I can only look up to it from afar. Above mid-grade profound sense martial skills were high-grade profound sense martial skills, peak-grade profound sense martial skills, and above that would be the Heavenly Tao Law. Above Sea of Soul Realm were half-step kings, ordinary life and death kings, peak kings, and titled monarchs. Each rank was like a huge chasm. Without the will and determination to break through everything, one would not be able to cross it. For Extreme Emperor already stood at the peak of this world, while Yichen was at most a youngster who had just grown up. The gap between the two was too great. Gazing at the finger hole left behind by For Extreme Emperor, Yichen felt as if he was looking at a giant looking down at him with cold eyes. After For Extreme Emperor, only 13 titled monarchs remained. It could be seen that as the modern era got closer and closer, the gap between the monarchs who left their marks was getting longer and longer. From the ancient era to the early medieval era, there would be one every 1,000 years. From the medieval era to the early near ancient era, there would be one every 1,500 years. From the near ancient era, there would be one every several thousand years. For some unknown reason, the number of titled monarchs kept decreasing. In the modern era, there weren't even any true titled monarchs, because only those who left their marks on the Emperor's Scar stele could be considered as true titled monarchs. The last titled monarch was a world-shaking genius. Before him, there hadn't been a titled monarch who could leave his mark on the stele for 10,000 years. Until he appeared, his title was Yuan Emperor. Yuan Emperor had an innate body and boundless Zhen Yuan. While Yen Fengfeng was explaining Yuan Emperor, in a valley far away, a great battle was taking place. The two sides were none other than Master Sky Sword and West Ocean Sword Master, Lu Wujin. Master Sky Sword, seems like my master overestimated your strength. There's no need for me to make a move. He can defeat you. While fighting Master Sky Sword, Lu Wujin still had the strength to speak. It's only the beginning. Master Sky Sword's voice was somewhat hurried. Sky Sword style, White Flood Dragon. As he spoke, Master Sky Sword's long sword slashed, and a white silk-like sword chi tore through the air. The sword chi stretched and stretched, bending and straightening like a nimble white flood dragon, piercing through the void. It was as fast as a flickering light, unable to be captured by the naked eye. Wave Cleaver. Facing this sword, Lu Wujin's figure flickered a few times. His entire being seemed to shift through the void as he chopped off the white flood dragon sword chi's head. Sure enough, it's his style. Master Sky Sword's brows furrowed. In truth, when he defeated Lu Wujin's master, it was only a narrow victory. The latter's clean and efficient style had left a deep impression on him. Lu Wujin's style was very similar to his master's. Of course, it didn't mean that Lu Wujin was walking the same path as his master. It could only be said that the styles of the West Ocean were more or less the same. Different living environments naturally led to different philosophies. Sky Sword style, Sky Cleaver. Seeing that his first strike had no effect, Master Sky Sword attacked once again. This sword strike was very similar to Lu Wujin's Wave Cleaver, clean and efficient. Ha! Is this the move that you created based on my master? Unfortunately, even my master isn't my opponent. How could you be? Lu Wujin soared into the sky and fiercely stabbed out with his long sword. Rings of chi revolved around the long sword, instantly piercing through Master Sky Sword's sword chi. So fast! Master Sky Sword was gobsmacked. His Sky Sword style Sky Cleaving was a speed-type sword that didn't have the slightest variation. All it had was an indomitable will that burst forth with astonishing potential. However, Lu Wujin's sword speed was even faster than his, as if this kind of sword speed was nothing special to him. Sky Sword Style, Sword Array. Finally, Master Sky Sword took out his strongest move. 18 true yuan long swords flew out of his body. With a shake of the long sword in his hand, the 18 long swords revolved around the long sword in his hand, rapidly forming a sword array. As soon as the sword array was formed, its aura immediately soared. Astonishing sword chi pierced through the sky, raising the valley to the ground. The grass and trees were also startled, uprooting from the ground like small swords. Go! Slashing the long sword in his hand, Master Sky Sword roared. Immediately, the sword array flew toward Lu Wujin. Sword array, interesting. However, this is far from enough. Master Sky Sword, take my self-created move, shifting ocean sword chi. Lu Wujin held the long sword with both hands, slashing it from bottom to top. As if moving an ocean, a majestic force erupted, condensing into a deep white sword chi that engulfed the heaven and earth, clashing with the incoming sword array. Crackle! How could the sword formation block this mighty sword chi? In an instant, it was shattered and sent flying back. Danger! Master Sky Sword's face changed color as he held his long sword horizontally in front of him. The next moment, the deep white sword chi swept over. Spurting out a large mouthful of blood, Master Sky Sword was sent flying like an arrow piercing through the sky. Chapter 703. There were not many people watching this battle, but they were all famous figures, such as Su Yuan of the Earth Sword Sect, Master Yuan Sword Sect, who was on good terms with the Sky Sword Sect, and the eldest disciple of the Sky Sword Sect, Master Wind Lightning Sword Sect. Although these people were not as famous as the Sky Sword Sect, they were still in the top 10 or 20 among the Sword Dao Grandmasters. Master has been injured. Wind Thunder Sword Master was more than 70 years old, but still seemed to be in the prime of his life. His mouth was wide open, his face full of disbelief. He knew that Yi Qin had defeated his master, Master Sky Sword. According to his master, Yi Qin had only won by relying on the defensive sword art. Without the defensive sword art, the two were equally matched. However, this West Ocean Sword Master seemed to have defeated his master easily. The difference was too great. Dozens of li away, Master Sky Sword stopped retreating, blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth like a snake. What a great move, ocean-shifting sword chi. This is the most majestic and powerful sword move I've ever seen. You've indeed surpassed your master, far surpassing your master. Master Sky Sword's expression was solemn. He had never been suppressed like this in a battle between sword masters. Even Yi Qin was only slightly better than him with the defensive sword art. If they were to fight to the death, even if he was killed, Yi Qin wouldn't feel good. HM? I still have the power to fight. Lu Wujin was slightly surprised. This sword contained the profoundness of wind and water. The water profoundness was already at minor completion, and the wind profoundness was close to minor completion. When combined, it was far beyond mid-grade profound martial arts. Adding the ingenious use of power, no profound martial arts of the same level could block it. Unfortunately, I have developed a new Sky Sword style in the past year. Now I will use you to test it. Master Sky Sword said lightly. Ha! Hearing this, Lu Wujin laughed. Using me to test your moves? I'm afraid I won't be impressed by your sword moves. But I will give you a chance. Go all out. Lu Wujin quietly waited for Master Sky Sword's strongest move. Master Sky Sword didn't get angry. He raised his arm and placed the long sword in front of his chest, as if performing the most pious sword salute. Sword of Understanding. With a slash of the long sword, the Heavenly Sword Sect unleashed the latest Heavenly Sword style. No one could describe how fast this sword was. This sword seemed to have caused time to stop, and thoughts to stagnate. Lu Wujin, who bore the brunt of this attack, could feel the terror of this sword the most. If Sect Master Sky Sword's previous attack had only piqued his interest, then this Sword of Understanding had already brought him some threat. Ultimate kill, 8,000 miles thread. The Heaven Sword sect had the Sword of Understanding, but Lu Wujian also had his own trump card. Before this, he hadn't been serious at all. He grasped the sharp longsword in his hand and swung it in the air. A moment later, a white ray of light shot out. At a glance, it was like the line between the sea and the sky, vast, profound, and unreachable. Master Sky Sword's Sword of Understanding was extremely powerful. His sword chi condensed into a straight line, while Lu Wujian's 1,000 miles thread was similar, condensing into a straight line. However, when the two attacks collided, the one that collapsed was Master Sky Sword's Sword of Understanding. That was because Lu Wujian's attack contained too much power, and there was no end to it at all. No matter how powerful the Sword of Understanding was, how could it block it? What a profound water profound. Master Sky Sword's eyes narrowed. How could he not see that Lu Wujian also contained the two profound essences of wind and water? But it was different from the sea-shifting sword chi. This 1,000 miles thread used the water profound as the main element, displaying the water profound to the fullest. When facing this move, it was like being in the sea. Although one could see the line between the sea and the sky, no matter how fast one would never be able to reach it. The 1,000 miles thread shattered the Sword of Understanding and slashed at Master Sky Sword's chest at a speed that he couldn't dodge in time. In the next moment, a loud metallic sound resounded. Master Sky Sword's hair was disheveled as he flew back while spurting blood. Unlike the previous time, his injuries were extremely severe. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were almost displaced, and his blood was flowing in reverse. To be able to force me to use 1,000 miles thread, you should be proud of yourself. Unfortunately, your potential has been exhausted. In the future, the gap between us will only grow bigger and bigger. Sheathing his long sword, Lu Wujian said to the majestic young man and the multicolor-robed woman, "Let's go." Swish, swish, swish. The three disappeared from everyone's sight like flickering lights. "Master, are you all right?" Master Tempest Sword immediately rushed over to support Master Sky Sword. Master Sky Sword's face was ashen as he waved his hand. "I won't die." Master Earth Sword sucked in a deep breath and asked, "Master Sky Sword, in your opinion, what is the extent of this Lu Wujian's strength?" "I reckon he can sweep through all sea of soul masters on True Spirit Continent." Master Sky Sword pondered for a while before speaking. "How is that possible?" Master Earth Sword and Master Yuan's sword were astonished. "Isn't there still Yichen?" Su Yuan blurted out. Master Sky Sword smiled bitterly. "In the past year, I've created the Sword of Understanding, and my strength has improved by a lot. A year ago, Yichen's strength was higher than mine. If he had continued to make rapid progress, he would at most be on par with the current Lu Wujian. However, I can feel that Lu Wujian's true strength is far from this. He hasn't used all his trump cards yet." Master Sky Sword originally believed that Lu Wujian's strength was only at this level. However, as soon as 1,000 miles thread appeared, he immediately sensed that Lu Wujian had an even stronger trump card. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so arrogant. If Yi Chen wanted to defeat him, it would be extremely difficult. Su Yuan and Master Yuan's sword exchanged a glance. "Sigh, I hope my guess is wrong." Master Sky Sword shook his head once more and left under the support of Master Wind Lightning. "This matter is getting out of hand." Su Yuan's face was filled with worry. As a master of True Spirit Continent, he didn't want to see all the Master Sea of Soul Realm experts of the continent being swept by a youngster of West Ocean. "Perhaps there will be a turn for the better," Master Yuan's sword said in a low voice. In the depths of North Ocean was a group of floating islands. At the center of the group was an inverted cone-shaped floating island. This island was boundless, with mountains, basins, forests, volcanoes, rivers, plains, and valleys. At the edge of the floating island, large and small waterfalls cascaded down, pouring down on the floating island below. At the same time, waterfalls also cascaded down from the floating island, flowing down to the floating island below. From afar, this group of floating islands was like a paradise, a wonder of the immortal world. It was truly beautiful, magnificent, and exquisite at the same time. On the inverted cone-shaped floating island, there was a huge palace that occupied several thousand hectares. Inside the palace, a middle-aged man and a youngster were standing one after another. In front of them was a model of a continent. Based on its shape and geographical distribution, one could tell at a glance that it was a model of true spirit continent. Above the model were numerous sparkling and translucent lines intertwining, covering the entire sky above the model. At a glance, it was simply impossible to count. There were at least millions of them intertwining together. The middle-aged man waved his finger, and a light dot landed on the thin line at the center of the continent. That was the central region, Sky Marshal Region. Tian, go to Sky Marshal Region. The youngster said respectfully, Master, why do you want me to go to Sky Marshal Region? If my guess is correct, the Forbidden Region carrying 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard will move to Sky Marshal Region within a year. You possess the first style of Void-Shattering Finger and Sky Scorpio King's Key, which means that this graveyard is fated with you. However, fate is fleeting, and you have to fight for it yourself. 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard will move to Sky Marshal Region. The youngster sucked in a deep breath and bowed respectfully. Yes, Master. Remember, Void-Shattering Finger has 4 styles, and there are also 4 keys to open the graveyard. The other 3 keys should be in the hands of others. If you can snatch them, do it. If you can't, then cooperate with them. I have a premonition that with the 4 Void-Shattering Finger styles and the 4 keys, you should be able to enter 4 Extreme Emperor's graveyard. Rest assured, Master. With my strength, unless it's a half-step king or a life-and-death king, nobody can be my opponent. A cold light flickered in the youngster's eyes. Your master knows your strength the best. However, Sky Marshal Region is a holy land for geniuses. Perhaps there aren't many who can contend against you, but there are certainly some who you can't kill. I can't kill them? The youngster declined to comment. All right, you can go now. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Farewell, Master. The youngster turned around and left the palace, soaring into the sky and flying in the direction of True Spirit Continent, soon disappearing without a trace. Waiting for the youngster to leave, the middle-aged man clasped his hands behind his back, for Extreme Emperor's graveyard has appeared. It's time for me to take a look. I wonder what level the strength of those fellows from True Spirit Continent has reached. I hope they won't disappoint me. Dragon King should come out of seclusion soon. With a wave of his hand, the model of True Spirit Continent disappeared into the void, and the middle-aged man's figure flickered, disappearing from the palace. Emperor Canyon, Yi Chen and the rest had long since left. On Emperor Scar Steel, the traces left behind by 4 Extreme Emperor flickered faintly like an illusion. In the following month, Yi Chen and the group traveled to a lot of places. There were natural wonders and strange terrains caused by ancient king-level battles. There were countless of them. A month passed, and everyone went their separate ways. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing didn't return to South Ridra region. It was already August, only a month away from 18th of September. If they went back, they wouldn't have enough time. Therefore, they might as well stay in Sky Marshal region. During this period of time, the news of West Ocean Sword Master Lu Wujin defeating Master Sky Sword spread like wildfire. Soon after, the incident at White Cloud Restaurant spread as well. Combining the two matters, it immediately created a sensation. Many people knew that a sword master named Lu Wujin had come to West Ocean. Apart from defeating Master Sky Sword in his master's stead, he was also going to meet the geniuses of True Spirit Continent on 18th of September. West Ocean Sword Master, Continent Sword Master, this was just a gimmick. Adding Lu Wujin's arrogant words, Nine Dragon Lake once again welcomed a golden age after 2 years. At that time, the number of people heading to Nine Dragon Lake would probably surpass that of the past, because this time was different from the last. This time represented the dignity of True Spirit Continent. If all of them were defeated by Lu Wujin, it would be tantamount to admitting that True Spirit Continent was inferior to West Ocean. Chapter 704. As the days passed, the 18th of September got closer and closer. As time went on, a large number of Sea of Soul Realm experts arrived from the nearby towns. Even Sea of Soul Realm masters could be seen frequently, which was something unimaginable in the past. Inside the restaurants and tea houses, all sorts of discussions could be heard. West Ocean Sword Master Lu Wujian has come with great momentum. Even Master Sky Sword lost to him. Right now, I'm a bit worried that he might really sweep through all the geniuses in the Sky Martial region. That shouldn't be possible, right? Regardless, our true spirit continent is the place with the most geniuses. It's not something the four oceans can compare to. You can't say that. Who says a remote place can't give birth to an invincible genius? Moreover, West Ocean has always been the most powerful among the four oceans. Only North Ocean can compete with him. It seems like this era is even more frightening than we imagined. Although West Ocean and North Ocean had many geniuses in the past, it was impossible for a super genius like Lu Wujian to appear. Do you think the number of life and death kings in the next 100 years will be much higher than before? It's quite possible. In the past 100 years, there would be around 10 life and death kings, and not more than 20. This time, I'm afraid it will be no less than 30, perhaps even more. In the ancient era, the number of life and death kings was the highest. Although they were not everywhere, it was still a spectacular sight. In the medieval era, the number of life and death kings suddenly decreased by 1-fold. In the recent ancient era, it had decreased by 2-folds. In the modern era, it had decreased by several folds. If more than 30 life and death kings could be born in 100 years, it would be the level of the late ancient era. The family. Duguju walked out of the evil demon cave with a calm expression. He did not look as miserable and frightening as before, as if the evil demon cave no longer had any effect on him. Walking to a huge wooden board not far away, Duguju stretched out his hand and took down the white paper nailed to it. It turned out that Duguju often went into seclusion. Fearing that he didn't know much about the outside world, he had ordered people to write down some of the important matters of the Sky Martial region and even the whole continent on the paper. This way, even if he didn't leave Duguju, he would still know everything about the world. West Ocean Sword Master, Lu Wujian. When Duguju read about Lu Wujian, his eyes gradually narrowed. Interesting. You actually defeated Master Sky Sword and even met with Yi Chen. Since you're able to stand on equal footing with Yi Chen, you're definitely not weak. Fine, let me see how many tricks you have up your sleeves and whether you're qualified to be a formidable opponent of my Duguju. The paper was crumpled into a ball and turned into ashes. The evil demon cave does not have any effect on me anymore, unless I can open the seal and enter the next level. But with the weakening of the seal, that evil demon would definitely take the chance to attack the seal and escape. So, it would not be a good idea. No rush, I will think about it after I reach Late Sea of Soul's realm. Just like Yi Chen, Duguju was also stuck at the peak of Mid-Sea of Soul realm. Entering Late Sea of Soul realm was inevitable, but it would take some time. Taking a step forward, Duguju walked out of the demonic cave. Unknowingly, it was already September, and the date was fixed on September 16th near the Nine Dragon Mountain. A large number of Sea of Souls realm warriors were rushing toward the Nine Dragon Mountain in an endless stream. September 17th, those who should come had all come. In the center of the Nine Dragon Mountain, around the Nine Dragon Lake, there was an ocean of people, their voices reaching the sky. Shoo 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 shoo. On this day, the number of geniuses who had come was also the highest. Bai Wuxue, Yan Fengfeng, Lu Xiaoyu, Sida Hao, Bai Minghui, Chu Zhongtian. Besides a few, all the other top geniuses whose names shook the world had arrived, wanting to see what kind of level the so-called West Ocean Sword Master had reached. Beside Lu Xiaoyu, a lot of people had gathered, including Bai Wuxue. Brother Lu, you fought with the West Ocean Sword Master half a year ago. How is his strength? Bai Wuxue asked. Lu Xiaoyu was silent for a while, then said slowly, very powerful. Hearing him, Bai Wuxue's expression froze. Lu Xiaoyu's words were very vague for others. Very powerful, everyone knew, but they did not know exactly how powerful, which was tantamount to not answering. However, Bai Wuxue was very clear about Lu Xiaoyu's character. If the West Ocean Sword Master was only a bit more powerful than him, he would not say the word very powerful. But, to make him say very powerful, this West Ocean Sword Master was definitely an extremely dangerous person. But, it's not like I did not make any progress in this half a year. A cold light flashed through Lu Xiaoyou's eyes. Bai Wuxuan nodded, not saying anything. Hee, my Imperial Sword technique has been cultivated to the 3rd level. Although I can only launch 3 swords at the same time, it is still twice as powerful as the 2nd level of the Imperial Sword technique. The telepathic sword that I got from Yi Chen helped me comprehend the profound meaning of speed, and the speed of my sword has been greatly improved. Lu Wujian, the West Ocean Sword Master, let me see how powerful you are. Situ Hao stood alone on the peak with a smile on his face. He knew he was not a match for Lu Wujian, but for him, as long as he could fight with people at this level for a while, it would be something to be proud of, which meant he had the potential to catch up. Thinking for a while, Situ Hao thought to himself, Yi Chen got my Imperial Sword technique, but I don't know which level he has cultivated it to. I guess he is at the 2nd level, but not beyond the peak of the 2nd level. At that time, I might have to compete with him in the Imperial Sword technique to see who is better. The night passed. The 18th of September arrived. The sky had just brightened when 3 figures came through the air, and the one in the lead was none other than Lu Wujian, the West Ocean Sword Master. Lu Wujian, the West Ocean Sword Master. Lu Wujian is here. The people near the 9-Dragon Lake were all startled. They looked at the 3 figures and then focused on the one in the lead. Lu Wujian's body was not strong, and he was a little thin. His palms were slender like bamboo, and they seemed to have some kind of magic power. On his face, which was not very handsome, he had a pair of narrow and sharp eyes, and a tall nose. At first glance, one would be attracted to him. Looking around, Lu Wujian did not find Yi Chen's figure, and the corner of his mouth rose. Humph, the Continent Sword Master? I'm afraid he is too scared to come. The woman in colorful clothes sneered. No hurry, there are a lot of people who interest me here. I can play for a long time. Lu Wujian said lightly. Indeed, there are a lot of powerful warriors. The young man's expressionless eyes gradually turned sharp. If he was a rock before, then he was a piece of steel now. The aura he was giving off was not any weaker than Lu Wujian's. Lu Wujian was the red flower, and he was the most obvious green leaf. You are Lu Wujian. The first one to stand out was Bai Minghui. All martial geniuses did not want to lose. Even though he knew that he was no match for Yi Chen, he still wanted to challenge him. You do not interest me at all. Lu Wujian glanced at Bai Minghui and then shook his head. You will know soon whether I am interested or not. Take this spear attack of mine first. Bai Minghui took out the long spear on his back and waved it out. The invisible spear light ignored most of the distance, and it was indeed Skybank. Nailin, you go meet him. Lu Wujian said to the woman in colorful clothes. All right. The woman in colorful clothes jumped up as a long red whip appeared in her hand. She lashed out at the invisible spear light. That unbelievably fast spear light seemed to have sunk into a swamp all of a sudden. Its speed was drastically reduced before it was shattered into pieces by the long whip. So powerful. This Bai Minghui is ranked in the top 20 in the master level warrior ranking, but his killing attack was blocked by a girl right next to Lu Wujian. Don't worry, Bai Minghui still has a second movement. Everyone knew quite a bit about Bai Minghui's killing attack. Plus, it had been more than a year, and it would be impossible for him to not improve at all. Perhaps he had already figured out the third movement. Second movement. Indeed, Bai Minghui's expression darkened slightly when he saw that his first attack had been broken. He immediately performed his second attack. In the next second, 5 beams of silver light attacked toward the woman from different angles. Their speed was even faster than the first attack, and they were even stealthier. Bloodthirst kill. The woman in colorful clothes attacked almost at the same time as Bai Minghui, performing the same attack that she had used on Murong Qingqing that day. It was performed with a long whip weapon, so its power was even more powerful. The woman in colorful clothes shook her long whip, and a 3-headed red snake was formed immediately. Its 3 heads clashed onto the 5 silver light beams. The snake heads were punctured, but the silver light disappeared as well. If this is all you have, then you will lose for sure. The woman in colorful clothes had suffered a loss at the hands of Murong Qingqing, but it did not mean that she was not as powerful as Murong Qingqing. After all, that day at the restaurant, she had been a bit careless and did not use her full power. Plus, Murong Qingqing was already very powerful, and she was at least ranked in the top 10 of the master-level warrior ranking. What a joke! I have not even used my true power yet. Bai Minghui's expression was serious. At first, he had looked down on the woman in colorful clothes, thinking that Lu Wujian was just brushing him off. But now, he did not think so anymore. The woman in colorful clothes was much more powerful than he had imagined. If he did not use his full power, then he might really lose. Third movement, Sky Bank Separation. His body split into two as the two Bai Minghui performed the Sky Bank movement at the same time. Although it was only one movement, the aura was completely opposite. It was as if one was in the light while the other was in the dark. The two auras merged together, and the Sky Bank movement immediately changed. The sharp spear light expanded infinitely, expanding by hundreds or even thousands of times in an instant. It shot out, and the clouds in the sky were instantly separated. This Bai Minghui has actually managed to learn the 3 movements of the Sky Bank. Once this movement is completed, his ranking will probably go up a couple of places. Maybe he can even get into the top 10. Everyone was secretly shocked. The woman in colorful clothes' pupils shrank. This spear attack was really out of her expectation. It actually gave her the illusion that she could not block it. Dragon Slash. Under the huge pressure, the woman in colorful clothes finally used her strongest trump card. Red Jin Yuan poured into the long whip, which was like a huge chain. It coiled out and wrapped around the fierce spear light. Frick, frick. Sparks flew everywhere. The long whip and the spear light wrestled with each other, neither giving in. But in the end, the spear light was like a trapped flood dragon, and it was instantly torn apart. Lose. With no time to lose, the woman in colorful clothes swung her long whip, and the whip light turned into a scarlet python that struck Bai Minghui's protective Zhen Yuan. Bai Minghui puked out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Bai Minghui lost. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. If it was Lu Wujian who had defeated Bai Minghui, it would not be a big deal. After all, Lu Wujian's strength was undeniable. However, this woman in colorful clothes was only a follower of Lu Wujian, and yet she also had such a frightening strength that even Bai Minghui could not block it. How could they not be shocked? Chapter 705. It is indeed the style of the West Ocean. Bai Wuxue had also been to the West Ocean before, and the warriors there valued speed the most. If they could finish it with one blade attack, they would not bother with a second blade attack. Although Bai Minghui's power was only around 10th, his spear speed could be at least in the top 5. However, that lady's attacking speed was not any slower than his at all. It's too powerful. That long whip appears and disappears like a ghost. It's as easy as using an arm. If this girl is already this powerful, I wonder how powerful Lu Wujian is? It seems like Lu Wujian does not plan to attack right away. If I want to challenge him, I will have to beat this girl and that aggressive young man first. Even Bai Minghui could not do it. If I want to beat this girl, I will have to be ranked higher than him. Everyone discussed among themselves, looking a bit worried. I Chu Zhongtian will fight you. On a flat ground right next to the Nine-Dragon Lake, Chu Zhongtian jumped into the air and landed right in front of the lady. That aggressive aura exploded out of his body, bringing up a tornado. Chu Zhongtian has come out, but his rank is lower than Bai Minghui's. Bai Minghui is 16th and he is 18th. Can he handle this girl? It seems like you guys still do not know much about Chu Zhongtian. Although his power might not be as powerful as Bai Minghui, he has the evil spirit body, which gives him an amazing defense. If it comes to a battle of life and death, he will definitely be able to kill Bai Minghui, and even those ranked higher than him. The ranking was based on one's power, which meant that it would be ranked according to one's power. However, sometimes, power did not mean everything. For example, in some situations, People with powerful survival skills would be able to kill people with higher power. Without a doubt, Chu Zhongtian's defense was definitely one of the best in the ranking, so it would not be wrong to rank him first. You will not be my opponent. The lady in colorful clothes had a very sharp eye. Judging from the aura on Chu Zhongtian's body, she could tell that he would not be more powerful than Bai Minghui. Since even Bai Minghui had lost to her, it would be pointless for him to come out and waste her time. Whether or not I will be your opponent is not up to you to decide. Chu Zhongtian looked cold as his aura increased rapidly. That dark red light flickered on the surface of his body like a layer of shiny film. Lu Wujin was slightly surprised and said to the rainbow-clothed lady, "Nailin, be careful. This person possesses the astral body and has a very high defense." Astral body? The woman's expression changed and she said coldly, "So that's how it is. Make your move. Even if you have the evil spirit body, I will still defeat you." I hope you can still say that later. Back then, Chu Zhongtian's weapon was a dark red rapier. But now, his weapon had long since been replaced with a semi-extreme grade weapon. It was red with a hint of silver, and it was extremely heavy. This was a reward for Chu Zhongtian, and the sect had spent a huge price to buy it. With the mace in hand, Chu Zhongtian poured his potent astral essence into it. Immediately, tiny specks of red dust began to float around the mace. These specks of dust shimmered with an illusory light, as if they were compressed diamonds and contained a terrifying energy. Mortal fragmented mace. Chu Zhongtian's figure flashed as he transformed into a dark red ray of light. He instantly arrived a few dozen steps away from the woman in colorful clothes and smashed his mace down. Bloodthirsty triple kill. The multicolor-robed woman did not retreat or evade. With a flick of her whip, a three-headed crimson python charged out. The python head in the middle welcomed the attack, while the two python heads flanked Chu Zhongtian's body from the left and right. She seemed to have the intention of killing Chu Zhongtian with a single move. Break. Chu Zhongtian didn't pay any attention to the incoming python head and smashed the middle python head. The python head exploded and dissipated into nothingness. Puff puff. Soon after, the other two python heads also attacked Chu Zhongtian's protective astral yuan. However, Chu Zhongtian's protective astral yuan was too powerful. It only caved in a large area like a broken lotus root. Ever since his cultivation base had reached mid-sea of Soul Realm, Chu Zhongtian's protective astral yuan hadn't been broken in a long time. On the master's ranking, there were only a few who could do so. What? His defense is this powerful? The complexion of the multicolor-robed woman greatly changed. She had underestimated the intensity of Chu Zhongtian's astral yuan. Tyrant Dragon Destruction Mace. Mid-rank Profound Sense Martial Arts took a little longer to charge up, so Chu Zhongtian seized this rare opportunity to use a low-rank Profound Sense Martial Art, Tyrant Dragon Destruction Truncheon. A red light flashed, and a dark red demonic dragon chi attacked the multicolor-robed woman. The multicolor-robed woman retreated a dozen steps, but she wasn't injured. A low-grade Profound Sense martial skill couldn't threaten her. However, her blood and chi were shaken to the point of being unstable. Fragmented Mace. After the Tyrant Dragon Destruction Mace was a low-grade Profound Sense martial skill, Fragmented Mace. The mortal Fragmented Mace he had used before was a mid-grade Profound Sense martial skill. However, the multicolor-robed woman was from the West Ocean, and her attack speed was too fast. If he wanted to seize the upper hand, he could only use low-grade Profound Sense martial skills that were faster to suppress her and slowly grind her to death. Rumble. The multicolor-robed woman forcefully took on this attack and was forced to take another dozen steps back. Chu Zhongtian continued to press forward, using both the Fragmented Mace and the Tyrant Dragon Destruction Mace in turns without any pause in between. His whole body was like a dark red tornado as he kept attacking his opponent. Everyone watching the battle was dumbfounded. They hadn't expected that the multicolor-robed woman who had defeated Bai Minghui would be suppressed by Chu Zhongtian, unable to fight back. This guy's defense is so freakishly powerful. Li Xiaoyun and Jing Aoshuan had arrived as well. Li Xiaoyun smiled bitterly. You have low-grade Profound Sense martial skills, But so do I. It was the first time that the multicolor-robed woman was forced to use low-grade profound sense martial skills. She felt a bit sullen inside. Wind flame whip. Beams of fiery red whip shadows shot out as the multicolor-robed woman finally blocked out Chu Zhongtian's attack and slowly turned the situation around. Volcano mace. But at this moment, Chu Zhongtian suddenly jumped back several hundred meters. Gripping the swordbreaker with both hands, he smashed it down. This swordbreaker was like the earth splitting apart and a volcano erupting. All of its power was unleashed in an instant, its power incomparably fierce. Mid-grade fire and earth profound sense martial skill, volcano mace. Damn. The multicolor-robed woman placed both of her hands in front of her and formed a red crystal shield. The red crystal shield had just formed when it was cracked by the volcanic mace power. Crackling sparks flew everywhere, and lava splashed everywhere. Don't be too proud. Watch my fire cloud art. The multicolor-robed woman removed the red crystal shield as her body floated away like she was weightless. She was like a fire cloud that moved at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, she had arrived on the right side of Chu Zhongtian. In the next second, a whip shadow coiled down and bound Chu Zhongtian's body. Crack, crack. A couple of marks appeared on his protective evil yuan, and the edges started to crack. Bang. Finally, Chu Zhongtian's protective evil yuan was shattered. The whip shadow coiled around Chu Zhongtian's body and continued to tighten. Break. Chu Zhongtian's muscles swelled as the light on his body flickered countless times. With a snapping sound, the whip shadow broke into pieces and disappeared. How can an evil spirit body be so strong? The multicolor-robed woman was in despair. She had never seen an evil spirit body and thought that it was only twice as strong as an ordinary spirit body. However, Chu Zhongtian's appearance made her realize that the evil spirit body's strength was beyond her imagination. It was probably the strongest physique so far. Nailin, you can't beat him. Let me do it. The majestic youth flashed and arrived beside the multicolor-robed woman. Brother Gu. The multicolor-robed woman was a little unwilling. Lu Wujin said, Nailin, come back. Yes. The multicolor-robed woman had to listen to Lu Wujin. I am Gu Lai, also known as Tyrant Saber Master. I will deal with you in 3 sabers. The majestic youth said in an extremely calm tone. Arrogant words. Chu Zhongtian loosened his muscles and looked straight at Gu Lai. First saber. Gu Lai simply drew his saber and slashed. Crack. Chu Zhongtian didn't have time to dodge at all. A huge crack appeared on his protective evil yuan, and the saber light hit his body, causing traces of blood to appear. Too fast. I can't even see how he attacked. Everyone around the 9-Dragon Lake was shocked. Second saber. Gu Lai indifferently waved the second saber, and layers of saber curtains appeared. His body shook violently, and Chu Zhongtian's protective Zhenyuan collapsed instantly. His thin inner armor caved in, and his bones started to hurt. Third saber. This time, Gu Lai's right arm swelled as he waved his saber, drawing a full moon mark. Chu Zhongtian was right on the edge of the full moon. Ding. Chu Zhongtian had finally blocked Gu Lai's attack, but before he could let out a sigh of relief, a majestic force was transmitted into his body through the puppet. He couldn't help but spit out a small mouthful of dark red blood, and his entire body was sent flying. 3 saber strikes, and Chu Zhongtian was defeated. Could this guy also be a first-rate super expert in Duguju? Too frightening. Chu Zhongtian's defense is nothing to him, and his saber speed is frighteningly fast. My premonition is getting worse and worse. The enemy this time is too powerful, and it's not just one person. Amidst the discussion, Lu Wujin smiled lightly and mumbled to himself, Gu Lai's tyrant blade, even I have to be careful. If I want to win, I will have to exchange more than 300 attacks. How could a mid-sea of souls realm warrior stop him, even if he has the evil spirit body? Including by Wuxue, a lot of martial geniuses' expressions changed. Tyrant Blade Master Gu Lai was definitely a very dangerous warrior. In the ranking, perhaps only Duguju could compete with him. As for who would win, no one knew, because they didn't know how powerful Duguju was right now. Unfortunately, Duguju had not arrived yet, and the number of people who could compete with Gu Lai could be counted on one's fingers. Moreover, none of them had a high chance of winning, since the highest-ranked warrior here was Bai Wuxue, who was ranked 4th, and Yan Fengfeng, who was ranked 5th. The rest of them would not be Gu Lai's opponent at all. However, Dan Tai Mingyue, who was ranked 3rd, had arrived, so she might have a chance of winning. But she was even more mysterious and would not attack easily. Hundreds of li away, 2 human figures arrived side by side. What a brutal blade art! No wonder Chu Zhongtian is not his opponent. Yi Chen's soul power had already seen what was happening above the 9-Dragon Lake, and he was a bit surprised. Chapter 706. Chu Zhongtian had the evil spirit body. Every time he reached a higher realm, his power would increase by a whole new level. Right now, although Chu Zhongtian was only at mid-sea of Soul's realm and had not even reached peak level yet, his evil yuan was still not something normal people could imagine. Even Murong Qingqing's demon power could not compare to Murong Qingqing's demon power. Of course, she had the perfect demi-demon bloodline, which combined with her demon power, made her look like a human demon's. Adding on the fact that her cultivation had already reached late sea of Soul's realm, and she had gone through the one with the world state, her profound sense martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds, which was why her battling power was more powerful than Chu Zhongtian's. If Chu Zhongtian reached late sea of Soul's realm, he would definitely be in the top 3 of the master-level warrior ranking. He would be able to compete with Duguju and Dan Tai Mingyue. As for who would be more powerful, it would be hard to say. Besides his evil spirit body and evil yuan, Chu Zhongtian was still lacking in other areas. The great era is coming. After 10 years, there should be a lot of people here who will reach the life and death realm. Yi Chen let out a breath as a strange light flashed through his eyes. Xianhou had reached the life and death realm at the age of 35, which was a record that was very rare even in the Great Era. There might not be many people who could surpass her. Even Yi Chen himself did not have the confidence to reach the life and death realm before the age of 35, since there was still half-step king warrior above peak level late sea of Soul's realm. Just the gap between half-step king warrior and peak level late sea of Soul's realm had already trapped a lot of people, not to mention the life and death realm. In other words, every step after peak level late sea of Soul's realm was like an abyss. No matter how talented one was, there might still be a chance that one step would fail. However, everyone present here was a rare martial genius. After 10 years, there should be some who would be able to reach the life and death realm. For example, Bai Wuxue and the rest of the young generation were already around 35 years old, or even older. After 10 years, it would not be impossible for them to reach the life and death realm. Moreover, after 10 years, Yi Chen himself would be 37 years old. The two were traveling at an extremely fast speed, covering hundreds of miles in just a couple of blinks. Yi Chen is here. Near Jiolong Lake, thousands of pairs of eyes looked at Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing as they flew over. In an instant, Yi Chen became the center of attention. Some of them heaved a sigh of relief, and the worry on their faces faded away. Previously, Yi Chen, Duguju, and Dan Tai Mingyue were not here. Although there were many of them, there were only a few of them who were powerful, so it was inevitable that they lacked confidence. Now that Yi Chen was here, all of them seemed to have found their backbone and were no longer oppressed by Lu Wujian and Gu Lai's imposing manner. They secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With Yi Chen here, our true spirit continent's chance of victory has increased by at least 30%. We already have a fighting chance. It's a pity that Duguju and Dan Tai Mingyue aren't here. Otherwise, our chances of winning would be higher. Don't worry. It's only daybreak now. Maybe they'll all come later. Everyone spoke one after another, discussing spiritedly. Sure enough, you've come. Lu Wujian looked at Yi Chen. Yi Chen said indifferently, no need to waste time. You and I will decide the winner and loser. Lu Wujian shook his head. I'm not sure if you have the qualifications to fight with me. If you want to fight with me, you'll have to defeat Gu Lai first. Arrogant. So arrogant. Does he think this is the West Ocean? Hearing these words, The spectators were filled with righteous indignation. Yichen, I'll fight in your place. Just as Yichen was about to speak, Yan Fengfeng appeared. She had seen Gu Lai's strength with her own eyes, and it was indeed powerful. She didn't have 50% assurance, but she had the advantage of speed. Even if she couldn't win, it would be hard for him to injure her. In this aspect, no one else could compare to her. Be careful. Yichen didn't refuse. He was very clear about Yan Fengfeng's advantage and strength. Swish. Abruptly, from the northwest, a beam of light shot over, blade chi crisscrossing. We both use blades. Let me fight him. The light dispersed, revealing a human figure standing in the sky. It was a proud and aloof young man. If it wasn't Duguju, who else could it be? His eyes landed on Gu Lai as he said indifferently. Yan Fengfeng hesitated for a bit, then backed off. Since Duguju was here, there was no need for her to fight with Gu Lai. Most importantly, she felt that her chances of winning were not high, and she might very well lose. Duguju. It's Duguju. I didn't expect him to only be one step behind Yichen. I was worried when he would come. Ha, Yichen is here. Duguju is here. What is there to worry about? Duguju's arrival had boosted everyone's confidence. Before, they were still worried about Yichen being alone. But now, all the problems had been solved. Bring out your blade. Duguju was the first to gain the upper hand as he looked at Gu Lai with a condescending attitude. 99 blade strikes, I will defeat you. Gu Lai looked at Duguju with a serious expression. He could feel that the latter's blade aura was not weaker than his at all. Moreover, it carried an aura that made people feel despair. 99 blade strikes. Even if you attack 1,000 times, you won't be able to harm a single hair of mine. Duguju sneered. First blade strike. Gu Lai didn't waste any time. He pulled out his long blade, and the muscles in his right arm bulged as he slashed out diagonally. It was not over yet. After the first blade strike, Gu Lai's second blade strike followed closely. One blade strike after another, a total of 9 blade strikes. Each blade strike was aimed at the blind spots, fast as lightning. Clang, 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 clang. Duguju pulled out his long and thin blade, bouncing off all of Gu Lai's attacks. He seemed to be very relaxed, as if he had done it with ease. So powerful! Duguju is even more powerful than before. Even Gu Lai's 9 blade strikes couldn't threaten him at all. Duguju, defeat him! The crowd roared. Beside Lu Xiaoyu, by Wuxue praised, he is indeed one of the monstrous geniuses. His improvement is not something that ordinary people can compare with. Although Bai Wuxue was ranked 4th on the master ranking, and Duguju was ranked 2nd, Bai Wuxue might not lose to Duguju if they went all out in a battle. However, it was obvious that Duguju had become stronger, and it was not just a little bit stronger. He could use his blade techniques with ease and familiarity. Yichen, how many moves do you think it will take to decide the winner? Murong Qingqing asked Yichen. Yichen thought for a while and said, more than 300 moves. The winner will most likely be Duguju. You think Duguju will win? The despair blade intent is very difficult to control. Duguju was able to restrain it and only release it at the moment of attack. This proves that his realm has improved again. Yes, it is a little different. Murong Qingqing nodded faintly. Bring out your killing move. Otherwise, you will lose miserably. Duguju was so powerful that even Gu Lai was starting to be affected by him. This was unimaginable in the past because Gu Lai's entrance was too domineering. He defeated Chu Zhongtian, who had one of the best defenses, with 3 saber strikes. Brother Gu, defeat him for me. The multicolor-robed lady shouted, feeling very unhappy. Gu Lai was not in the mood to deal with the multicolor-robed lady. Duguju's strength had exceeded his expectations. He felt like he was fighting against Lu Wujian, and he was on the defensive at every turn. Purgatory chop. With his mind, chi, and spirit at a high level, Gu Lai flew up and hacked down with his saber. The gray saber chi connected the sky and earth, ruthless and tyrannical. Duguju did not retreat or dodge. He waved the saber in his hand, and a despairing aura burst out, causing the sky to turn white. Boom! Dugu Ju fell down, and his feet stepped on the lake, creating ripples. Gu Lai somersaulted a few times in the air before landing on a mountain peak. With this move, Dugu Ju had the upper hand. Tyrannical 24 Saber Strikes. Feeling that his killing move was slightly weaker, Gu Lai stomped on the mountain peak and flashed, arriving at Dugu Ju in the blink of an eye. He waved his saber again and again, choosing to engage in close combat. Clang, 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 clang. How could Dugu Ju be afraid of him? He waved his saber to meet the attacks. Above the lake and in the sky, saber lights flashed everywhere. Chi exploded, and the two's figures could not be seen anymore. It was as if they had hidden in the void. Waves of saber chi leaked out, and the surroundings of the Nine-Dragon Lake became unrecognizable. Such a fast exchange. The battle between two saber users is more exciting than I had imagined. Too powerful. If I go up, I'm afraid I won't even see their silhouettes before getting killed. Hearing the discussions of the crowd, the multicolor-robed woman creased her brows. She originally believed that the continent had no experts and had long since declined. However, the appearance of Dugu Ju was like a sharp saber, shattering her confidence in Gu Lai. This Dugu Ju was indeed very powerful. She had no idea where he had come from. Saber of Despair. Dugu Ju's pupils turned eerily white as he slashed out with his saber. Despair chi condensed into a line and bombarded Gu Lai along with the saber chi. Not good. Gu Lai thought that his saber speed was fast enough, but Dugu Ju was actually a bit faster than him. He promptly raised his saber to block and lowered his center of gravity. Clang! Glaring sparks burst forth as Gu Lai's feet slid on the lake water, his clothes torn. Despair Fox. Dugu Ju didn't show any mercy. His saber chi became even more vigorous as he slashed out a demonic fox phantom. The demonic fox phantom had a sinister appearance and densely packed sharp teeth. Exuding a dense despair chi, it bit at Gu Lai. Sky Absolute Tyrannical Saber. Blue veins popping out on his forehead, Gu Lai furiously roared. His aura erupted fiercely, and his entire body seemed to turn into a giant as he forcefully slashed out with his saber. Swoosh! The mournful saber light slashed at the demonic fox phantom. Before the demonic fox phantom was slashed apart, it spat out a pale white beam of light, which struck Gu Lai's protective Zhenyuan. With a kachit sound, Gu Lai's protective Zhenyuan was instantly shattered. Spurting out a mouthful of blood, he involuntarily flew back and fell on the lakeside. Gu Lai had been defeated by Dugu Ju. From start to finish, he hadn't been able to gain the upper hand. Dugu Ju's strength shocked everyone. Even Lu Wujian faintly creased his brows, feeling that Dugu Ju wasn't easy to deal with. Others couldn't compare to him. Turns out he's the most powerful person on True Spirit Continent. That sword master of the continent only has an undeserved reputation. The multicolor-robed woman said, "Interesting. Defeating all the geniuses of True Spirit Continent is my goal this time. But if I were to defeat him effortlessly, it would be too boring. Seems like he's my strongest opponent." Lu Wujian had the thought of fighting. Opponents were hard to come by, and he had always been invincible in West Ocean. It was truly boring. Chapter 707. No wonder he could keep up with Yi Chen. He is simply too powerful. If Yi Chen's improvement speed drops even a little bit, he would be in danger of being surpassed. Li Xiaoyun sucked in a deep breath and mumbled to himself. Yi Chen's unbelievable rise made Li Xiaoyun cautious. Although Dugu Ju was powerful, he could not say that Dugu Ju had surpassed Yi Chen. Regardless, Yi Chen was from the southern regions. Emotionally, he was more biased towards Yi Chen. Yi Chen's expression is very calm. Jing Aoshuan wanted to say something, but after seeing Yi Chen's calm expression, she became pensive. Fortunately, I did not attack. Situ Hao frowned deeply. He had discovered that the geniuses of the Sky Martial region had started to split into two groups. The strong ones were getting stronger, and the weak ones were also getting stronger. However, the gap between their strengths was getting bigger and bigger. He was already showing signs of being left behind, which was not a good sign. All right, I will not fight for one day, but for eternity. A strong sense of danger made Situ Hao put away his arrogance. The great era was coming, and the levels of geniuses were becoming clearer. Among the former top 5 young warriors, only Bai Wuxue was still standing on the front lines with Yi Chen and Duguju. The others were starting to fall. From this moment on, it would be clear who had the potential to reach the life and death realm. It was like a huge wave washing away the sand. Only those who could endure the test would have the possibility of not being eliminated. If he did not work hard, even the second line would be in danger. You are qualified to be my opponent now. Lu Wujin looked at Duguju, his battle intent rising. Chin. Putting his blade back into its scabbard, Duguju flashed onto a mountain peak and said, "My only opponent is Yi Chen. Let's talk after you defeat him." Lu Wujin and Yi Chen both used swords. Before Yi Chen revealed his strength, Duguju would not turn his opponent into Lu Wujin. All right, defeating him is not hard. Lu Wujin's expression froze slightly. Duguju's rejection made him a bit unhappy. As far as he was concerned, being acknowledged by Duguju was already something to be proud of. Lu Wujin. Just when Lu Wujin was about to look at Yi Chen, Lu Xiaoyu walked out in front of everyone's shocked gazes. Frowning, Lu Wujin said, "Half a year ago, you were not my opponent. It is still the same now. You should step down. Indeed, I am not confident of defeating you. However, you might not be able to defeat me as easily as you did half a year ago," Lu Xiaoyu said as he placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. "Oh, it looks like you have made great progress in the past half a year. You will know whether I have made any progress or not when you try. There is no need for Brother Lu to make a move. I will try you." The colorful-clothed lady was a spectator of the fight between Lu Xiaoyu and Lu Wujin half a year ago. She knew Lu Xiaoyu's strength very well. She did not believe that Lu Xiaoyu could have made great progress in the past half a year. After all, half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu could not even withstand 10 sword strikes from Lu Wujin. Hence, Lu Xiaoyu was not worthy of Lu Wujin making a move. "Take this." With the long whip in her hand, the colorful-clothed lady attacked Lu Xiaoyu with the wind flame whip. Seeing this, a cold light flashed in Lu Xiaoyu's eyes. He instantly unsheathed his sword and swung it. Dozens of arc-shaped sword chi shot out and approached the colorful-clothed lady. The whip and the sword chi collided and produced a series of explosions. However, Lu Xiaoyu's sword wasn't that simple. The dozens of sword chi had different trajectories. Some flew in the air, some slashed straight, some arced, and some were full of power. After the colorful-clothed lady's whip was cancelled out, there were still several sword chi that attacked her at lightning speed. Fire crystal shield. The colorful-clothed lady quickly used a defensive profound martial skill. There was a loud bang. In the next moment, the colorful-clothed lady retreated 10 steps. Her face was filled with shock. How is this possible? His strength has increased by more than 50% in the past half a year. She couldn't help but be shocked. Bai Wuxue nodded slightly. Lu Xiaoyu wasn't someone who would get depressed so easily. Failure would only make him improve faster. This had been proven in the past. Clearly, losing to Lu Wujin in 10 moves half a year ago didn't make Lu Xiaoyu quiet. Instead, it made him cultivate even more crazily, bursting out his unprecedented potential. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come out to challenge Lu Wujin. So that's how it is. But let's warm up before the big battle. I hope you won't disappoint me. Lu Wujin's clothes were very long, just like his long hair. They fluttered in the wind. He stood in the air and walked toward Lu Xiaoyu step by step. Finally, he stopped 100 steps away. Make your move. Lu Wujin placed his left hand behind his back. Void Kill Sword Art. When Lu Wujin walked over, Lu Xiaoyu had been accumulating his strength and sword aura. When Lu Wujin stopped, he made his move. The distance between them seemed to be ignored. Lu Xiaoyu waved his sword. A strong wind rose, and the sword chi filled the sky. Lu Wujin's left hand was still behind his back. He held the sword hilt with his right hand and pulled it out. Then he clashed a few times in the air, breaking all the sword chi. Fast. Extremely fast. Lu Wujian's sword art was even faster than Lu Xiaoyou's void kill sword art. The sword chi that filled the sky couldn't even get close to him. Void kill sword. Lu Xiaoyu naturally knew that Lu Wujian's sword speed was out of this world. Almost no one in the world could compete with it. But he was already prepared for it, so he wasn't surprised. Letting out a breath, Lu Xiaoyou's Jinyuan burst out, pouring into the long sword in his hand. The long sword twisted a bit, bringing up an invisible wind as it stabbed toward Lu Wujian, who was not far away. But Lu Wujian's position was refracted, as if he was in a mirror, and this mirror could shatter at any moment. Your attack power is enough, but it still can't do anything to me. Lu Wujian held his sword with one hand and swept it upward, using the most vigorous and boundless shifting ocean sword chi. Immediately, a deep white sword chi engulfed the heaven and earth, cleanly breaking Lu Xiaoyou's sword aura. The spatial refraction effect also vanished like smoke in thin air. The remaining moving ocean sword chi didn't stop, attacking toward Lu Xiaoyu. He saw the weakness of Lu Xiaoyou's sword attack. Bai Wuxue knew Lu Xiaoyou's ace attack very well. That void kill sword seemed to be close to shattering the space, but it was actually a trick. Wind was everywhere, and the flow of air was wind. This void kill sword contained the profound of wind, which could cause the wind to go berserk and destabilize the space. However, it was still a long way from truly shattering the space. Of course, even though it was a trick, the power of this void kill sword was not to be underestimated. The only weakness was that the attack range was too big, and the power was not concentrated. Otherwise, this sword attack would definitely be the most powerful one. Chaotic Wind Chop. Facing the incoming deep white sword chi, Lu Xiaoyu didn't panic at all. The long sword in his hand drew a circle in the air, creating a storm of sword chi. Bang, 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 the deep white sword chi was shattered, turning into thousands of sword threads. Lu Xiaoyu was careless and was hit by a few of the sword threads. His sleeves and shoulder clothes were torn, and he got hit in the chest as well. Blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. This doesn't look good. Lu Xiaoyou's power has improved very quickly, and he might be able to return to the top 5 young giants, but Lu Wujian is too strong. Holding his sword with one hand, he can suppress Lu Xiaoyu. It doesn't seem like he is getting serious. It's my turn. Lu Wujian took a step forward and instantly appeared before Lu Xiaoyu. The long sword in his hand disappeared, and a white sword screen covered the latter. Ding, ding, ding. Sparks flew everywhere as Lu Xiaoyu did his best to block Lu Wujian's attacks. The speed of his attacks became faster and faster, and without him realizing it, he had already surpassed his limits. There is indeed improvement. Lu Wujian put down his left hand, which was behind his back. His body became more agile, and his sword chi was sometimes as violent as thunder, sometimes as swift as the wind, and sometimes as ferocious as the waves. Ping! Unable to dodge, Lu Xiaoyu was sent flying hundreds of meters away by a sword chi. More and more blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were still bright. Metal wind. Holding his sword with both hands, Lu Xiaoyu used the result of the past half a year. It was his strongest killing move, a mid-tier metal wind fusion profound sword move. The golden sword wind was very tangible, and it swept toward Lu Wujian. Lu Wujian's brows twitched. This Lu Xiaoyu wasn't that strong half a year ago, but now his power was almost at Master Sky Sword's level. Not only did he receive nearly 100 moves from him, he had also developed an even stronger killing move. Without any hesitation, Lu Wujian also used his killing move, 1,000-mile thread. Puchi. The golden sword winds collided against the line of sword energy. The golden sword winds were instantly sliced apart. However, the golden sword winds were seemingly endless, and a significant amount of the line of sword energy's power was whittled away. Shockwaves of gold and white intersected as a result, which assailed the two cultivators. Spurting out a large mouthful of blood, Lu Xiaoyu finally couldn't hold on any longer, and his body was sent flying. As for Lu Wujian, he also retreated dozens of steps. This was the first time he had been forced back. Sigh, Lu Xiaoyu lost as well? Even though he lost, it's still a glorious defeat. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu couldn't even receive 10 sword strikes from Lu Wujin. But now, he has received 100, and his power has increased by nearly half. Lu Xiaoyu must know that he can't win, and he just wants to test his strength? Not being able to receive 10 sword strikes was very humiliating, but receiving 100 sword strikes was completely different. Although Lu Wujin didn't seem to be going all out, letting out a breath, Yichen said, "It's my turn. Don't be careless." Murong Qingqing reminded Yichen. "I know. With his strength, I can't afford to be careless." Facing the wind, Yichen's sword aura burst out, spreading out like the night, covering the entire Nine-Dragon Mountain and Nine-Dragon Lake. Without needing any reminder, everyone's attention was drawn over. In everyone's eyes, the world seemed to have disappeared, and only Yichen remained. The world they felt was deathly silent. Those who were closer to Yichen discovered that they couldn't even speak. It was like they had fallen into a nightmare. They could think, but they couldn't move their bodies. What a terrifying sword intent. Bai Wuxue took a deep breath, his eyes filled with shock. Duguju was also somewhat shocked. His hands and feet trembled in excitement. This was a feeling that no one else could give him. Such nervousness, such anticipation. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.